Hold on
Get
one
into your
second.
flow.
All right, we are. Go.
Good afternoon and welcome to BNLP Bunting Neighborhood Leadership Program application and discussion coffee talk time. We're glad that you are here with us, and let me just present the process for today's session. We are going to have a conversation about the whole BNLP experience from fellows from last year and the year before, and we have instructor perspective as well. And at the end of our discussion, towards the end of our discussion, we'll open it up for Q&A. So please send your questions to us through all the connections in terms of how to submit questions, right? For more information, please check our Urban Health Institute's website. My name is Rukat Nafu. I'm the director of the Bunting Neighborhood Leadership Program here at Johns Hopkins Urban Health Institute. And what I'm going to do is have each of my panelists introduce themselves before we dive into the description of what BNLP is about. So, Lisha, why don't we start with you?
Sure. My name is Lachelle Stewart. I am the current Executive Director for Baltimore Healthy Start, and I'm a 2017 inaugural BNLP Fellow.
My name is Jonathan Moore. I'm a social entrepreneur, social impact individual, and I am the most recent second cohort, followed Lachey's inaugural cohort, 2018.
All right, thank you. And instructor's perspective will be presented by
Bishop Douglas Miles, Senior Pastor of Cornelia Baptist Church, clergy co-chair of the BUILD organization, and also a member of the strategy team of Metro IF, which is a collection of organizations like the BUILD organization from Boston down to North Carolina.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I just want to share in terms of how this whole Bunting Leadership Program started. It started when we assessed what are the community needs in terms of leadership development. And what kept coming up again and again is that emerging leaders do not have enough opportunities for training, professional development opportunities, and networking opportunities to enhance the work that they're doing. In some cases, they're doing it in isolation. So an opportunity came about to really focus on meeting the need that exists in the community. So we stepped out to the plate, and with funding, long-term committed funding from the Bunting family, and more specifically Mary Catherine and Andrew Bunting, here we are kicking off the program, along with matching funds from the Urban Health Institute. So last year was our inaugural year, and what we focus on are areas specific to what we feel are needs to be addressed. And these needs are not things that we came up with, but it's also through community conversations we were able to identify what are core components for emerging leaders that are working diligently in communities to improve or enhance the conditions of Baltimore's residents. And these segment areas for core training.
Sorry, Roka. I'm just going to cut in and turn it around because it keeps rotating every time I rotate it. Sorry, just a technical difficulty. We'll be back soon. There we go. Okay, we're back on.
Okay.
Thanks, Rebecca.
I'll pick up where I left off, and that's the core areas of training for the Bunting Neighborhood Leadership Program, and we fondly call it BNLP. And that includes relationship, orientation to leadership, relationship building and organizing, communication, deconstructing racism, policy and advocacy, and systems building. And so we kicked off an application process last year, and we had 6 phenomenal fellows go through the program. So we have our application process right now, and so we're going to start with the application process, and then hear perspective from our fellows in terms of their own journey in the application process. So the application was released a few weeks ago, and it is due October 26th, sharply by 5 p.m. It's an online application, and you can submit that anytime between now and October 26th, 5 p.m. sharp. The application is quite simple and straightforward with a few questions that require short answers, and there are 2 essays, less than a page long, and there's a video submission. We're very clear in terms of the criteria for people, selection criteria of people to apply. And it has to be, it's around 2 years of service in the community, ages between 18 and 45, commitment to serving Baltimore City neighborhoods, and all the selection criteria is listed there, as well as and also all the expectations. If your application is approved and if you make it through the selection process. So pay real close attention to the selection criteria and also the application criteria and all the documents that need to be submitted. If you don't submit a complete application, then there's a chance that your application will not be reviewed at all. This is a very serious, intensive leadership program where you meet once a week for extensive training. So let me just ask you, Lachelle and Jonathan, why did you apply for BNLP?
Well, as for me, the application was forwarded to me by someone in my agency who thought, hey, Lachelle, this would be great for you. And when I read over it, I thought this comes at a perfect time. I was trying to, I had been working at my agency. I have a passion for the work that we do. We work with women and children. And, but I wasn't connected in the city, and so I felt like I needed an opportunity to get on a platform where I could be connected, be introduced to other systems, be introduced to other leaders, and so that's what drove me to complete the application, and eventually get considered and actually chosen as one of the inaugural group of the Bunting Leadership Fellowship.
How would you describe the application process? Do you remember how brief or extensive it was? How would you describe it?
I didn't think it was particularly cumbersome. I thought I did the application process pretty much with ease because the questions that it asked, it was things that I was already doing. So all I had to do was write about what I was doing and what my desires were. The most cumbersome thing for me was the video, which my video, if anyone sees it, it's so not techie, it's so elementary. Like I just did it at my desk at work and I was like, they're so not gonna choose me because of this video. But if that's something that's hindering you, please don't let that hinder you. Just know that if it's in your heart to do the work and it's your desire to improve your leadership skills, those things will show through in what you send off.
That is absolutely perfect because our whole intent of having a video piece as well as written piece is that some people feel very comfortable writing and some people feel very comfortable communicating through video. So our BNLP committee advisory group said, let's do both, and that's how we came back. So that's a wonderful example. So thank you for sharing. And how about Jonathan? What's your experience like?
Yeah, my experience has been phenomenal. I mean, the application process set the expectation, but what really took it to another level was when I had a conversation with Bishop Miles. And he asked me, what gets you angry? And we really had a conversation about my passion. And it was one of the few times where I could really be expressive to someone during a candidate process that I didn't feel like that it would hurt me. And it felt where I could get personal. And we just had a conversation. And what he said to me hit home and reflected. And I had to reflect on it. It took me probably about 4 days to process it. And I said, okay, this is really going to challenge me and push me in a direction that's going to make me feel uncomfortable. And I like being uncomfortable. And so going through the application process gave me an opportunity to be pushed in the interview process that made me think like, oh, okay, you know, and with my video was just opening up my laptop and recording myself. It wasn't high def with cameras and everything else. But it was, I was just passionate, and I was just me. But I'll tell you, when I talked to Bishop Miles, I said, okay, I'm glad I filled out, I'm glad my BME brother, Damian Cooper, gave me this opportunity to fill out this application. And I want this.
So you brought up a very interesting point too, and that is this program is not for people that just want to sit comfortably.
No.
So we, right off the bat, we push the envelope.
Yes.
We need you to feel
Yeah.
uncomfortable
Yeah.
and push the limit and a direction that you probably did not think about, but a direction to go. And I remember having a conversation with Bishop Miles about this piece about anger. So why did you come up with that question? Why did you think that question is a very important one in the interview process?
Well, it's important because it identifies that which a person responds to passionately. And it also gets into a person's self-interest. And I'm a firm believer that people tend to operate out of their self-interest. And that's the only way you can keep them engaged in any policy work and any commitment to the community is if they recognize, first of all, they're operating in their self-interest, and they have a moral center as well. That's a piece of what makes you, what I get at with what makes you angry, that you have to have some moral center out of which you're operating.
Okay, so the anger could be a driving force, and anger and passion to enhance the work that you're doing at a community level. So going back to the question about the application process, Jonathan, talk about the ease of the application, but also you come from the corporate world, and Bishop Miles, if you remember during the interview with Jonathan, is like, okay, we're talking about community service here. You've done a lot of work around, with corporations, you know that ins and out, and you're kind of new to community work. So why did you choose to be part of BNLP?
Well, it was the whole having a conversation with Bishop Miles and just being uncomfortable. And I knew that I was searching for answers that I didn't know how to formulate the question to, but I knew there was this driving thing in me. I'm like, I know I want to get this answer. I want to get this answer, and I wanted to be in a position where people had more knowledge and come from different industries, so I gained a different perspective on how to think about the growth of the business. And I wanted to be pushed in a way where I wasn't the smartest person in the room, and I was around other people who were smarter than me in their industry, specifically in community organizing and nonprofits. So I get to learn their language and learn from their point of view. And it completely pushed me in a direction that I had no idea. And it's given me a foundational language and verbiage that when I speak to people, now I can speak to people on levels of depth. And it's making me think about, it made me think about the business overall, and how community organizing and building community is an aspect of long-term, it's a stream of revenue. And it just helped me look at it from just a completely different point of view. And I came in with, all right, I'm here, I'm gonna learn, let me take as much as I possibly can. And it has far exceeded my expectations. To the point now, we're talking about policy and legislation. I had no idea that I could do it, and now when you sit down with the instructors, you know that it's possible, that it's not as hard as I thought it was to get started, and to continue it. And so and each instructor has leveled up.
Okay, so that's interesting. So talking about the instructors, our instructors represent academia from various universities, including Hopkins here, Johns Hopkins and Morgan State University and University of Baltimore. So we have academia represented, we have theory and research represented, and we have a community leadership represented, which includes Bishop Miles. So, Lachelle, so when you took on this role as BNLP fellow, what was something that made you nervous? So describe the interview process. When you came to the interview, was there something that you took away like, this is good, this is not good, I should have done this, or is there anything you want to share with our audience, the applicants, in terms of the interview process? What was it like for you?
Well, I think the interview process was not like any other that I had gone to before. There were people to represent all different aspects of the program at the interview. We had an instructor, we had a community person, an advisory person, we had Rebecca. So we had a whole bunch of players around the table, and you will get questions from all different aspects of trying to groom you as a leader, trying to figure out where you're coming from, trying to figure out why you're really interested in the program. And so I was really nervous at first, but as I settled into the interview, I just said, I'm gonna be authentically me, and if it's for me, it will be for me. And I think that's the best way to approach it. Just let yourself shine through, and if the opportunity is for you, you will certainly get it.
Similarly, Bishop Miles, you're a phenomenal community leader, very well recognized. You are a Hopkins graduate and a Dunbar High School. I have to insert that because you always bring that up. And so can you speak to the reason why you chose to be an instructor when we extended an invitation? We just had to have you here. But why did you say no? Yes, I mean.
Well, first of all, I've been engaged in community work for over 50 years now, and the realization is that my time of engagement is coming toward an end, and I wanted an opportunity to pour into a new generation of leaders. Some of the things that I've learned over the years to help them, first of all, to avoid some of the pitfalls that I made, and secondly, to be able to take advantage of some of the lessons I learned over the years. And there was some self-interest in it. I'm a part of the Build organization, Metro IAF. I'm always on the lookout for potential African American organizers, and I push that, and I make that clear to those who sit under my teaching, that that's my self-interest, a piece of my self-interest of being involved. But it's also the need to inform two generations below me of where we have come from, how we've gotten to where we are. Because I think my generation has done a very poor job and sharing with the generations beneath us what it took to get to where we are. And so many have assumed that in some cases we've always been here, and many don't know the story of overcoming and the sacrifices made along the way. So that's a piece of why I share this.
And I think, and I'll ask the fellows to jump in, I think the conversation with you in your class, as you share your history around organizing, sometimes the young people, the millennials, have a different perspective in terms of organizing, and you're quite receptive. And I think what I observed is listening to their perspective and engaging in a dialogue where both sides get heard. And I think that's this forum, this BNLP, that's the forum for such deep conversation. And that's why we keep the number of fellows really small, so that there's depth in conversation. So if you reflect back to lessons from Bishop Moss and maybe other instructors too, give examples of where there's different perspectives, where these different perspectives were honored. Because we have in Bishop Moss, folks in their 40s, folks that are in their 20s. So if you can share your experience, but not necessarily just Bishop Moss, but other instructors' perspective about this organizing, this policy and advocacy piece, and then we'll go to other segments of our core instruction.
Well, I would just say the first day I left Bishop Miles' class, we were walking to the car, and I said to him, Bishop Miles, I learned more today than I learned in my whole grad school. And that is the experience you have every time you go to his class, and I appreciate the information that he gave us on the value of relationship building and conversations with people and having sit-downs with people and stretching me, because I am not the most outgoing person, and so that was really a stretch for me, but I have definitely recognized the value of it in my role that I have now, because if you don't talk to people, you don't make those connections. Most of what you get in life is really not necessarily based on what you know, it is a lot on who you know and what relationships that you have built. And so that's invaluable information, along with the thousands and millions of other tidbits that you got from Bishop Miles and other instructors while you were in the group.
So after every instruction, it would take me 4 days to process what just happened. Yeah, because the information it's honest, it's direct, and it's powerful. And if you aren't prepared to receive it and to implement it, then you're wasting your time. And you're wasting your instructor's time, and you're wasting the time around the people around you. And I learned more about being relational. I learned what a community organizer was, which I didn't have any clue what they did. I just knew these are people that got people to sign petitions. I learned how do you start, and where should you take your relationship, and what is the nature of your relationship, and what does self-interest mean. And now these are things that I use back in my business practice when I'm meeting with people, because I want to know what your self-interest. And because I've gone through that process, now I know what to look for. And now, I mean, we've been doing the second cohort for like 8 months now, like 7-8 months. Mm-hmm. Now it still takes me 2 days to absorb what exactly we talked about, because it comes hard and heavy, and it's always poignant, and it always answers a question that I'm looking to, that a question I've been wanting to ask a long time. And the instructors are incredible. I just love how, as a black man, I can be in a room and be vulnerable. You know, I don't necessarily need to be put on this professional front. I can ask questions about Baltimore that I didn't know about, and I'm going to receive the answers. And so this is the safe space for me to just be conversational, and to learn, and to also be expected to be intelligent, but to also push back in a respectful manner. And there are not too many spaces, I know, for me being a black man, where I can do that. And this is, once we're in this room and that door closes, being LP, it's get your learning on.
So I think what clearly you're emphasizing, both of you, is that the serious nature of this fellowship.
Yes.
Anybody that's interested in enrolling, it is a serious commitment that we're asking 1 day a week. And it's a serious investment that we're making, as we pay 20% of the fellow's salary to attend the training. And our investment goes beyond investment in the fellows, but the nominal core instructors we have lined up. The core instructors are not only committed to doing training, many of these instructors are actually mentors, giving their time over coffee, over lunch, over breakfast with the fellows, and that's not time that's clocked. So their level of commitment to this program is quite intense. So I think the reward, when you say Bishop Miles, the reward is not only for the fellows in terms of what they're getting from being BNLP. How have you grown through this process? What have you learned? So it's a twist. I'm sorry to put you.
It's not
uncomfortable.
It's not really
Right?
a twist, because I go into every time of engagement with people open to learning. That's the way I've tried to groom my life, is to be a consistent learner. And I've learned so much from both cohorts of fellows who come through, especially in getting a better understanding of the millennial and Generation X generations, and why they have disengaged from many of the institutions that I felt and I still feel have an important place in our society. Understanding their angst with this generation that I'm a part of, and with the society in which we find ourselves in now. They've stretched me. They've made me go back and do some new readings, and just commit to spending more time just listening to those who are younger than me. I never assume that because a person is younger than me that I have nothing to learn from them. And you all have pushed me and pushed back, and that was my hope in coming into this, that it would not just be a lecture, but it would be conversation. It would be me stretching you and you stretching me.
That is great. So talking about stretching, Lachelle, and we're going to talk about transformation. So I remember how uncomfortable you were in the communications segment of the training, where you had to speak. Tell us a story about yourself. And you were so nervous. You were so nervous throughout the whole communications segment. And then when it came for graduation, by then you were like, whoa, Lachelle. And then when I asked you if you would be willing to volunteer to be on Facebook Live, you said yes. So it's a transformation that I observed and others have observed. So tell us a little bit about your transformation overall in terms of your experience with BNLP, and I'm going to just go to you next.
Okay.
So how has this experience impacted you on a personal level, on a professional level, and also an impact on a community level?
Well, I think what Jonathan said earlier is it's a stretch, and thanks in large part to Bishop Miles, because get uncomfortable was his mantra, and so it was for me. But I think in going through the process, it wasn't meeting for the sake of meeting. It wasn't school for the sake of school. It was actual information that you could use in your daily life. And so everything that we did on Friday, it was stuff that I could take back to my job, and I could put it into practice, and I could actually see the benefits from it. And so when it's things like that that occur in your life, I think it's easier to speak on it. It's not that anything that I had to prepare. It's not anything that I had to mull over. It was just coming from my heart. And so at graduation, when I spoke about what I learned and what I encountered, it was just coming from my heart, and it was just flowing from my heart, the gratitude that I had. I could never have expected the growth, the things that I learned, the amount of stretching that happened with me participating in the group, because it wasn't just leadership, but it's just personal development overall and relationship building.
So at a community level, kind of talk about how you feel like you're more prepared, or have you seen anything more, really tangible in terms of changing you're doing in the community as a result of having gone through the leadership program, and now you're a year removed, because it's about almost a year since you graduated.
So just sharing with others the value of relationship building, sharing with others the value of stretching yourself so that you can become an advocate for yourself and your community. We actually work with the moms in our program to do some of the same things that we did in the Bunting Leadership Program. Just knowing that if you're more vocal, if you're more prepared to speak about the things that are important to you and to your families, that you can have some impact. And when we talk about policy later, I'll talk about how that translated into my policy issue actually being developed and actually becoming a law in Baltimore City now.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so we'll come back to that. That's really a real success story.
That's really
Taking
good.
your policy to the law. So that's wonderful. Yes.
That's
So
awesome.
how about your experience, Jonathan? I know you have not graduated yet, but
Yeah.
in terms of your personal and professional growth, if you can speak to that, and I think at this point you can actually talk both from like the businessman Jonathan and the community nonprofit businessman Jonathan.
It completely changed everything. It made me put the development of our program on hold so I could learn more, because there were gaps that were being filled that made me feel a lot more comfortable moving forward. So every week I challenged myself to not be so anxious to speed up and move forward, like you do in business, like hurry up, get it done, scale. It's like, okay, well then actually be a student of what's being taught. Okay, then how do I start to apply that tutelage? And so now when I go in the community, I walk through the community, I listen to what people are saying, and they speak different to me now, and I'm able to absorb the messaging. when I'm looking around the community, I'm using a language that I've learned here. And so it's making me look at the more well-rounded approach to not just business, nonprofit, and community organizing. It's to be a well-rounded social entrepreneur. You have to consider all these things and how all these things have these measurable impact. And so now I'm seeing the other side of community. And when I talk to my fellows and they start talking about community, and just when they break it down into levels of understanding it, and I sit back and I listen, and I'm like, okay, well then maybe I need to start looking at it this way and start to integrate that into what we're doing, so that when we start talking about specific aims and specific outcomes and quantitative, qualitative research, I can incorporate these things into it. And I've learned from Charles Xavier, Justin Brown, Rashard Stanton, Rudy Lee Daniels III, let me get that right, Rudy Lee Daniels III, Kelsey Johnson, and Larry Simmons. You gotta say the third. And so I've had to sit back and just be patient. I've learned personally, I've learned to be patient with myself. And that's been very important. And I've learned to listen to others and be able to take it in, but also go back and not be fearful to ask questions, not from a business standpoint of view, but from an inquisitive standpoint of view. So it's completely shaped me as a founder. I'm a lot more patient. I'm a lot more forgiving. I want to get to the crux. I want to understand the root of the issue. Before it was always, what's the root? But it was always the root from monetization, not the root from the problem, the people. And so it's allowed me to dig deeper, and I'm constantly going back to the books that we've been given, the research, the material that we've been given, and constantly using it as much as I can. And I'm finding myself going back to the first lessons and still using what we were taught to apply it, because I know I have a meeting with somebody, and when I have a meeting with this politician or this minister, well, I've been taught how to do this. And so if I fully don't understand it, I still have a resource I can pick up the phone and call someone, and get the answers to guide me in the right direction. So just because I'm here and once I leave it's still not done, there's still resources, because if I'm serious about what I want to be able to do, then I should be able to use the resources available in order to achieve whatever goal and objective.
Well, that's really wonderful, so that you see the public-private partnership in playing out as you experience BNLP and how it shapes and refines what you're trying to do in terms of community impact and social enterprise.
Absolutely.
And it actually, shaped our thinking too, because, when we were fighting for BNLP, we really didn't think about the business community, recruiting from the business community. But, you've, been just a wonderful, wonderful example. And I think you will share in terms of what you were able to share at BNLP and how the other peers look for information from you, and how you've been helpful for them in terms of their own thinking around social enterprise, but also how they've helped you around community organizing, community service, because not only are you, I think, not learning only from the instructors here, but there's peer learning. So if you can talk about, what does that peer learning feel like? What's the level of peer support?
First of all, I think rarely do you get the opportunity to sit around the table with so many giants who are really just candid and really trying to work together, break down silos. So this opportunity has created like a family, like you said, Jonathan, of people who you can go to. Like Rebecca, she's like the mother. I guess I shouldn't say that.
No, I love it. Big sister. I take that too.
And so she's recognizing how you can connect with this community person or this community partnership, and really making the links. And those are the things that we need, because we're out here, we're doing great work. And I know for myself, I didn't know all of those who were doing the same type work or work that could assist one another in the community until this opportunity. And so I think it's open doors, it's broken down silos. Jonathan and I were talking about connecting. He's helping me have a different framework. So I just think that, and then getting the opportunity to also interact with leaders like Bishop Miles. That wasn't something that I was privy to before this opportunity. And so now it's just made so many connections which have really lent to my success in my position.
So can you mention a few other big names, aside from Bishop Miles, big names, and those are big leaders in Baltimore
I still have
City?
to live in Baltimore. Maybe some other names.
So who are some big names that you connected with through this experience or had as part of your guest speaker, guest presenter?
So we had Associated Black Charities, which was very powerful for me as well. And like you said, the communications piece, really pushing. What was communications?
It was Burness Communications.
Burness Communications.
Yeah.
And also having the opportunity to just speak with Andrea from the Sun and just really know
Baltimore
how
Sun,
the
yeah.
Baltimore Sun,
Yeah.
just really know how you can get your information across to the masses about the work that's being done in the communities. So just everybody was a giant. I'm not gonna say that
That's
we
well
didn't.
said.
Yeah,
Well
everybody
put,
was a
well
giant.
put, well put. You want to mention other giants, Jonathan? We had
Yeah.
one just recently.
I'd like to say, there's Senator Barbara Mikulski.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How can I forget her?
She left a huge impression on everyone. She is no joke. I understand. There was Ivan that just came down and just gave us his playbook.
From Me Productions.
Yes, that was unbelievable. Dr. Lawrence Brown. I'm actually trying to figure out how do I take a class from him.
At Morgan State.
Yeah, so I can learn more. Ayelet Hines, now we're in policy.
Hopkins, yes.
And it is just, we look forward to, this is our sanctuary.
Yes.
I've
heard the fellows say that.
This is our sanctuary, and we look forward to coming here every Tuesday and or Friday, and be more than just fellowship, because we know that the instructor that's coming, we're going to be in awe, and we're going to learn, and we're going to take so much notes. And it's not uncommon for us to take 2-3 pages of notes based on the instructor. Then follow up and start asking each other's questions, because this is such a knowledge hub for serious people that it just elevates your expectations, and that is no joke. And so I always look forward to who's the next instructor, because Bishop Miles set the tone.
Yes, we started with that. We set the tone high.
Yeah. And it has gone up.
Yeah.
And up and up, and it's like we're not interested in stepping back in our learning, because if the expectation is here and it keeps on going up, well then our expectations is here, because we're raising our expectations based on what we're learning and how we can apply it. And so it's I don't know if I answered your question, but
Yes,
it's I'm having an intellectual blast.
Intellectual blast, knowledge hub, all good. So let's go back to your the impact that you talked about your policy, your success story. So if you can tell us, because each fellow as part of BNLP must identify a policy agenda they want to introduce that they're passionate about. So you had success about your policy agenda and how our team helped you continue to work on the policy agenda, and you've had some great success. So please share.
Certainly. So my policy agenda was around housing, the families in our program. Housing, safe, affordable housing, is an issue, is a great issue for them. And so we settled on, there was hubbub in the city about trying to get landlords to be licensed, for there to be some stipulations on what they could have or what they needed to have in their homes before they were able to rent them to people. And so we partnered with City Councilman Bill Henry. Bill Henry, along with some other AIDS Communities United, who are organized, community organizers, Jews for Justice, the Public Justice Center, and a few other agencies, along with parents in our group, people in our Community Action Network, and worked towards getting that such thing developed. And so we met many times throughout the course of the year, our parents actually participating in making the checklist that landlords would have to have in order for their homes to be safe, or for them to feel safe in their homes. So we all worked together. We settled on, we came up with the bill. The bill was presented to City Council. Several of our moms actually went and testified on why they needed this, why it was important, how it would help their families. And it actually passed in April of this year.
Oh, congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah.
It actually passed. And so, so our moms were, it was just so very impactful that they were able to see something from the start, see it finished, and see that they were able to make a change, to make an impact just by speaking. I mean, we had some of our moms speaking at community groups in the evenings, and talk about me not wanting to speak in public. They were equally as nervous, but they did it. Yeah, but they did it because it was something that they really were interested in. And so now you'll hear a lot of hubbub about it in the news now, about the fact that this law has passed. I've even seen attorneys trying to represent landlords because it's passed. But we did it. It's passed. It's not exactly how we wanted to do so. We're still advocating, of course, to make amendments to it, but it's something in place now so that every landlord, when they rent in the city now, will have to have an inspection and a checklist, and they can't just rent any old thing to our families. So that's very important.
That is phenomenal.
That's awesome.
Keeping safe, families safe
Yeah,
in these homes. That is absolutely wonderful. So the system you got not only the training around organizing,
Self-interest,
but
organized
self-interest, and also the policy and agenda instruction, and also the ongoing mentoring, because you had one-on-one opportunity to work with Dr. Jurgen and his team. So that's great example. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it is.
We
And
appreciate
it
it.
pushes you to put your thought into what can I do, how can I, what will be impactful?
Yeah.
Because when we started the policy class, I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, and you were like, think about what's important to you. And so that whole journey of figuring out who should we reach out to, how should we do this, how do we organize this to get the results that we want, was very impactful.
You defeated one of the most powerful lobbies in not just the city of Baltimore, but the state of Maryland, and that's the landlords.
Wow.
And that's to be commended.
That's huge.
Yeah,
And this is the
hard to
power of
challenge them.
organization, though.
Yeah.
I mean, organizing.
Yeah.
Because it was unlikely, I mean, we were with Jews United for Justice, and that's like an unlikely pairing.
Coalition.
But exactly, but we all wanted the one purpose, and so we came together and got it done.
Wonderful. Great.
That's
Great.
awesome.
Great successes.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
let's go back to just reviewing some of the issues related to the application and emphasizing a few things, and emphasizing about how preparation for an interview and selection process. And I'm gonna ask Bishop Moss to help me, because you were involved in the selection process last year. So applications get submitted. We only accept fully complete applications. We've had people ask us, does the video piece weigh more than the essay piece? No, all the pieces are really important. So it's really important to pay attention, to put your best foot forward in completing these applications thoroughly. So focus on the content, and the writing piece is also important, but really, what are you trying to communicate? The content, the passion of what makes you angry, what drives you? What drives you to this table to want to be a BNLP fellow? And also the seriousness nature, to really consider to what extent can you commit to this effort? Because you've heard from all the panelists here, and we're looking for serious commitment, because a serious investment in dollars and times and other resources that we put in to support this effort. Thanks to funding from Bunting and also Urban Health Institute and some funding from Bunting as well. So consider that. Then once you submit the application, then there's a review committee that will review all applications, all complete applications. If they meet the application criteria, so make sure you pay attention to the criteria. And the review committee represent, as Michelle said, so I'm summarizing everything we discussed. That includes folks from Hopkins, folks from the community, folks from all diverse group of people, from researchers to community leaders running various community agencies. And then, so the interview process, there's a reference check. We look at about 2 references, so make sure your references are solid. And then we invite you to be a part of BNLP. We must also have employers' support if you're employed, because employers have to give you permission to be off from work 1 day a week to come to the training, and we pay the employer. So this is not supplemental income. You do not make extra money by signing up to BNLP. You get 20% of your salary, which will be given to the employer to cover your time for being here. The determination of that 20% salary is that the max we offer is 20,000. So, and for those that are unemployed, what we figure is we do an average of the 2018 fellows salary as that 20% that you would get if you're unemployed. And if you're unemployed, you must have a fiscal agent. So there's a fiscal form that you have to submit. All these forms have to be completed and sent. And we have a checklist, so it's important to focus on those checklists. And then once approved, be ready to start in February. And classes run weekly. It's about 40 weeks of training sessions. And the graduation is in December, so about 11 months of serious commitment to this work. The work includes attending classes on time, submitting your assignment on time, and participation in class, and field trips and retreats. Those are all what is expected of you, including reading. You get what you put into this class. So I want to, and you all agree with me, right? So you get a whole lot of BNLP if you put a whole, the exact amount of help that we're going to any limits, right, to provide assistance, and so I'm gonna let some of you talk about some of that extra assistance that you've been given through your mentorship, and you also talked about the peer learning opportunity. Performance. So your performance will be evaluated based on those things that I said, your attendance and completion of assignments, but we also, and also then the impact that you're making. So we will find out from your employer, how have you changed as a result of being participating in this program, and also we want to assess then the community level impact that you are making. We also are really assessing our work, the BNLP's program, by doing assessment, because you submit weekly assessment about your sessions, and then mid-year and end of the year assessments, and then end of the year 1-page, 2-page information that you write about your experience, and then your graduation speech, all that gets factored in, and then we will follow up, and your success with the policy agenda, how you're developing it, what impact you're making, the progress and the success that you're having around your policy agenda. And we are also assessing, our instructors, how well are they doing based on your assessments. So your weekly assessments are very, very important. I know we're going to make some changes based on, some guest speakers that we have and stuff that we would not be inviting. So we're constantly assessing ourselves, because your success is our success and our success is your success. Anything that you want to add about in terms of preparation of the applicants for the review process and interviews?
I would urge each applicant to be authentic. Keep in mind, this is Baltimore. So if we don't know you, somebody who we know knows you. So be authentic in your application. Don't fudge it. Be who you are, and state honestly why you want to be in the program.
Anything that you want to add? This is Johns Hopkins, and so some questions that came up, it's like, how did you feel? I think some of you may have had reservation. I know some of the fellows had reservations. It's like, oh, Johns Hopkins is this big giant, and we're not sure about this NLP program fee. So, what would you say to that?
It doesn't feel like a Hopkins thing.
I take that.
To be honest, it feels like a completely new direction. And the way that I talk to people about it is, it's a subversive strategic investment in individuals that are for real about making change here in Baltimore. This is just not a place where you just show up and you just learn something and then you take some notes and then you never use it again. This is for real people that are going to want to do real things, but need the guidance in making sure that happens. And so when I look at the brand Hopkins, it doesn't feel like the brand Hopkins. It feels, however, it's some extension of the brand Hopkins, however it is, but it just doesn't feel that way to me. It feels like you're investing in me because you see the future growth and potential that I have. And everyone before us and everyone that sit around the table, just like, wow, the work that you're doing is absolutely amazing. And the work that you're going to do, I want to know who you are so I can at least track your journey and say that I at least know you. And how can I potentially help you out wherever you're going? So it didn't feel like a quote-unquote Hopkins thing.
I think it's emblematic of the new direction that Hopkins is taking and has taken over the past few years to, one, change its image within the Baltimore community, and to be sincere in that effort by creating opportunities that sometimes impact Hopkins itself. For me, it was a homecoming, because I'm a Hopkins grad, but at years I was at odds with my own institution. And so this was like a homecoming for me, and to be able to land in a place where I could be authentic, contribute to a new generation under the banner of my alma mater.
That's beautiful. This is a really authentic Hopkins experience under Johns Hopkins Urban Health Institute. It's authentic. It's really serious. It's serious commitment and investment. And as I said, Bunting is providing funding with matching funds from Johns Hopkins Urban Health Institute. And if you remember, Michelle, President Daniels sat and met with you. Remember that experience? Is there anything you want to share about that? And how did that feel? Did it feel authentic that there is this continuous effort in terms of bridging relationships between Hopkins and the East Baltimore community and the larger Baltimore community?
Yeah, I think earlier I spoke about the access to figures that this opportunity gives you. President Daniels was supposed to be with us for like 10 minutes. He stayed for like an hour with us, just really listening to us, finding out what we do, why we do it, and how Hopkins can assist us, and how that works in the whole big plan for the city. And like you mentioned, we had Barbara Mikulski come in and talk with us. And so just all these huge, I guess when I was little, it would be like larger than life figures that I would not ever think that I'm sitting around the table with them. And so this opportunity gives you the chance to be at the table, to have a seat at the table. The mayor came and met with us and invited us to her meetings. And she said, if you want a seat at the table, I'm offering you a seat at the table. And so guess what? I went to the table. And so
you belong at the table.
Yes, a very welcome part at the table. And so I go to those meetings twice a month in the morning. And so just the access to people who can make is just, you can't put a a price tag on it. I talked about the fact that this is $1 million education here, because it's more than just, of course, we read a lot of books, which we
Oh,
both say.
yeah.
We read a lot of books, but just
Yeah.
the practical, everyday knowledge and connections, and assistance with getting you to where you need to be to make the change for the families that you work with, or the cause that you're trying to push forward. It's priceless.
So if it wasn't for Bunting Neighborhood Leadership Program, where would you get this opportunity in Baltimore?
I have not yet. I have seen several opportunities for leadership programs come across my desk. I have not yet seen another program that offers the comprehensive type of education that this does. Because you can go to a leadership program and learn about budgets, and learn about grant making, and learn about, grant writing, and learn those things. But I think, like I said, this is stuff, every day in my job, I go to meetings that are just for the sake of meeting, but this is not that at all. This is learning that you can actually put into play each time you go out. It's stuff that you're really using, it's connections that you're really accessing to help make change in the city. And I think that should be the purpose of all leadership programs. It's not always that way, but it's been that way at Bunting, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, it just, I don't know of any where they focus on making sure you connect the dots to the history. And that's been very poignant. And it's one of those, so that's how it started. And not a lot of individuals will take the time to make sure that you get it, and you understand it, and you understand its history. And so I personally, for me, I don't know where I would have gotten this information. Even I could have gone to the library, but where do I start? And where do I look for it? What makes sense? And it would have taken me way, way longer to comprehend and to understand direction. And it's just the depth of knowledge and connecting the points have been huge. And understanding the history and understanding how public policy has come into racism, it has kind of just completely opened up my eyes, where we're like, okay, how do we get in public policy? So, yeah.
So I think some of the things that I observe in terms of how the peer cohesion piece, how you all learn together. So we talked a lot about the instructors and the reading, but the collegial feeling that the relationship and learning across, not only within your own peer group, but across, because Jonathan, you're going to be sharing your expertise with Lachelle and Jasmine and Elise next week around providing advice around social enterprise, and how you think about that. So those kinds of bonds are really important, and that's why Bishop Miles and I've talked about how wonderful it is. One, you collectively after the training, you go to dinner, you go to some places. and just hang out. That relationship building is important, because our intent is also, there's power in being a collective. So, just 6 people in this group may not have as much power individually, but collectively they do. And our intention is over the years, we will continue to add more and more cohort, but it's not to have those cohorts be in silos, but for all of you to work together and have opportunity to network, just like you're going to be doing, continue to do, so that we have more power to enhance the conditions of right here in Baltimore. That's the commitment for Bunting Neighborhood Leadership Program. That's the investment of the Bunting family. That's the investment that Johns Hopkins Urban Health Institute is committed to do. So in closing, so we've answered some of the questions that we have received throughout, prior and also throughout this conversation. But I want to give each one of you an opportunity to make closing comments. So just think briefly, what is it that you want to communicate to our audience about the Bunting Neighborhood Leadership Program? Yes, we'll start with you, Jonathan.
It allows me, or it allows individuals to be deliberate in action and making sure you connect the dots to achieve your objectives and your goals, to make measurable impact.
For me, I would say it helps you strategize. What do I need to do? Who do I need to speak with? Where do I need to be in order to help affect the change that I would like to see happen with families? And so it gives you access to all these different avenues to actually make what you have, your burning desire, to actually make it happen and flourish in a way that you could never have thought of before.
It gives you opportunity to sit with a group primarily of African American academics and community leaders who can share with you honestly what our journey has been, what our journey is now, and what it needs to be going forward in the future.
And it definitely pushes you outside of your comfort zone.
Oh, without a doubt. Absolutely. You're going to get challenged. You will get challenged, and it's a great thing being challenged.
And I would say, come to us. Come to Bunting Neighborhood Leadership Program if you are serious in making change happen. We don't want you working in isolation. We want to equip you with what you need in terms of knowledge, skills, resources, and other networks as to enhance the work you're doing at a community level. You shouldn't be, this work in Baltimore City is very, very important. We have a lot of needs right here in Baltimore City, and together we can make change happen. Whether we're talking about academia right here, community leadership, other leaders, business leaders, funders, all of us together, we can make change happen in Baltimore City. And that's the intention of the Bunting Neighborhood Leadership Program, to equip you. So if you're serious, apply, because we are totally committed to assisting you in every way to reach the level of success. And thank you, and you can continue to submit to us your questions. And again, I want to remind you, October 26th, 5 p.m. is the deadline for submission. Best wishes in your success.
Do you want to do a Q&A session? Do you want to open the floor for questions?
Yes.
Okay.
We have a few?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, I thought we did, so okay.
I was trying to whisper it, and I was like, should I say
How many
something?
questions do we
Okay,
have?
so we have two kind of three-ish questions. It's from two people, but the first question is for the fellows, and the question is, I would like to know two things that the previous leaders will take with them from this program. One, what was the most surprising skill, tool, resource that you've gained? And then the second question is, what is something you can immediately apply to your life and work?
Okay, so you're gonna ask the questions loud? Or just, okay, we're just gonna say without.
The question is for the fellows. Sorry.
No, I'm saying, so for the audience to know what the questions are you gonna say the questions?
You just said it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I did not know we were still online.
Oh, we're still live?
Yes,
I didn't know
yes.
we were still live. I was like, that's
Yes,
why
I
asked.
never turned it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
You can see we have a lot of fun here.
Okay.
I'll read. It's the coffee.
So,
Do you want me to ask again?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Okay. So the question is, one, what is the most surprising skill, tool, or resource that you've gained from this program?
I guess for me, it would be the way that I think in layers. That it's okay to think that way. Because I've been accepted into a room that allows me and wants me to think that way. And so there's a confidence that I see things differently than what other people do. And finding ways to articulate that is a good thing. And don't look at yourself as being the over intellectual Negro in the room. you belong at the table, rightfully take your seat at the table and be who you are.
For me, I would say it's the power of communication and making connections with people. You do have to have a voice. You do have to know how to articulate your voice and who to speak to get what you need to happen. And also the power of actually sitting down with people, talking to them. I know this is the text and cyber world, but there's a lot of value in the history, which Dr. Miles so always pushes home to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
The power of relationships. And so has hugely been beneficial, just recognizing that, honing that, and practicing that.
All right. And the second question is, what is something that you can immediately apply to your life and work?
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything. Like I said, each week when you come to class, it was just like a godsend for me, which I said in my speech. Each week that I came to class, literally when I went to work that next week, it was something that I needed to use the information that we had, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. We had budgeting. I had to do a budget. I'm a new ED. Actually, when I joined the fellowship, I was a deputy director. While I was in the fellowship, I was offered the opportunity to be the interim ED for my job, and now I'm the ED. And so everything that we got each week, it was put into play the next week at work. We did budget, we did fundraising. It helped me have the most successful fundraising season that my job had in many years because of the strategies we learned during the fundraising session. So I could just say everything that I learned, I truly have put into play and used.
Yeah, I echo the same thing. I mean, every single thing that we've learned, and I sit down and I start asking people questions, they look at me as if, who is this guy? Where did he get this knowledge base? You know, and it's just every single thing, every day that I take from here, I refer back to, I ask questions, I read something, and like I said, it answers my questions on the questions that I thought about in my head, but had difficulty formulating. So it's given me the answers, and it's given me the steps to go in the right direction on exactly how to do this. And so I agree with you, it's everything.
Okay. And then the next question is, how will you measure the success of the program post-graduation?
So some of the things that I mentioned in terms of how we'll measure success post-graduation includes continuing to follow up. I follow up regularly with the fellows to keep track in terms of their personal and professional development and what they see as the impact that they're making at the community level, and also check in with their employers, and also checking on at the status of their policy agenda. So we shared some of that here. So that is how we continue to really look at the impact that we're making post-graduation. One thing that I want to add is that we talked so much about in the program, and I also want to go back to the applicants and the people that we have sitting at the table as fellows. We want serious commitment from fellows that are applying. Don't waste your time to apply for this program if you're not really serious about doing the hard work. You're wasting your time, you're wasting a reviewer's time and all of our time. But we want committed people representing diversity. Could be a Latino or a Latina, you could be a Native American, you could be African American, you could be white. Our interest is that you are committed to serving communities in Baltimore City, and primarily East Baltimore. So be committed, and we will continue to guide you in the process, provide you the training, and follow up with you post-graduation to continue to support. It's not only about assessment. Post-graduation, we are providing mentoring. That's the thing about linking Lachelle with Jonathan. She's graduated. We don't let them just go. We continue to provide the necessary support so that they can have success post-graduation as well.
And I would also say, when you talk about success, and I told Rebecca this, several of the people in my cohort have gone on to advance in their career, have accepted higher positions than we had when we started the fellowship. And I said, this is a great commercial for the, for the fellowship. Because Jasmine accepted a different position, at least in my cohort accepted a different position. So it definitely pulls you to move upwardly in your quest for what you're trying to do. Absolutely.
Yeah, and actually, thanks for that point. Yeah, it's like moving up. The titles for almost all the fellows have changed, and their where they are and the leadership level has also changed, and also in terms of their interest for continuing education. So we've had folks now that are at graduate level program, masters, pursuing masters, and others post graduation here at BNLP. So I think we continue to touch fellows not only personally, professionally, but higher aspirations in terms of their educational development.
Okay. The next question is, I know that one of the requirements for the program is to have 2 years experience in a target community listed, but what if you have done work in another Baltimore community, still East Baltimore area, would you still recommend applying?
Yes, because the criteria says primarily or preferably, and so it doesn't mean with exclusion. So if you're been working in other areas in East Baltimore, that's acceptable. But thanks, that's a very important question.
And then a follow-up question to that is, have there been fellows who have been able to be a graduate student, have a part-time/full-time job, and be able to complete this program?
Yes, we have. We have at least one that we can immediately think about. Yeah, was going to college, nursing program, was enrolled here at BNLP and had a full-time job. So it's really possible. It might drive you crazy, but it's totally possible. And you know yourself best in terms of what you're capable of.
Is Rudy still in school?
Yes,
And
Rudy and Kelsey.
Rudy's still in school.
Yeah, Rudy's still in
Kelsey.
school. Kelsey's
So
in
for
school.
this current year, we have actually about 2 or 3. So Rudy,
Kelsey
Kelsey.
are still in school
Rudy and Kelsey are still in school.
and work full-time jobs.
And work full-time jobs and doing it here. So yes, you can do it, but you're the best in assessing yourself, and your time management actually is something that is coming up and up with this group.
Yeah.
And that is something that we actually also address, how to be more effective in managing your time. So it is possible. And a lot of the coursework, I would say, with BNLP happens right here when you're at the training.
Yep.
Yes, there is reading, but most of it is actually being ready and prepared for a conversation here.
Okay. Do you have time for more questions, or ready to wrap it up?
Are there
Ours.
from the audience? No.
Okay.
All right, thank you, audience. So continue to send your questions. You have time until October 26th, 5 p.m. to submit your questions and submit your application. Thank you for all your questions, and we hope that this Facebook Live interview has been helpful to you. And I want to thank my panelists here, Jonathan, Lachelle, and Bishop Miles.